since we're going to be on the road for a while, we probably have at least an hour left of driving, I figured it would be a good time to talk about why we started van life or van building or tiny living, whatever, you know what I mean, like how we got into it, because it's kind of like going back to the heart of things whenever going to this tiny house festival. So figured we could start with Matt. Do you want to start?
With what?
So, oh wait, I'll turn the camera around and then I'll ask you some questions. So, what had you get into alternative living?
Get into rather than just what I do. I would say, like, I didn't just get into it, but rather it's just what I like doing. I remember growing up, building a tree house and living, or not living in it, but like always going into creeks around the house, building little like forts, and just I think it was just an innate thing that it just made more sense as I became an adult to build more adult tree houses and little forts.
And what was like the first alternative living space that you had?
Well, I mean, spending time in the military, it's like you get used to sleeping anywhere in like more uncomfortable situations, but leaving that, it morphed into regular apartment living, and then I got a little bored with life, so I converted my Jeep into a tiny house on wheels, and that the bed ended where my knees started, and it just wasn't comfortable, but that was the first experience I had.
And what keeps you going in this lifestyle?
It's just something I understand, so it's just a living situation where I can understand my life in it and I don't get lost or confused.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
This is my signature road trip seating position. It applies for good gas mileage, and I don't have anything else.
Leg up. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, and then do you want to show everyone your hidden cup holder?
Yep.
Oh, look at that. That's a great cup holder addition to the Ram ProMaster,
You know,
in case you haven't found this one.
I don't know if your parents have ever done that, like, driving test where they, like, put water, and if you spill it, it's just like that, but in a,
Did your parents do that to you?
no.
Shockingly, mine didn't either.
I had, like, a week crash course into driving.
And now you're driving a big-ass van.
Yes.
Great.
Everything is possible.
Okay. And now, let's see. I guess I'll ask myself the questions because I don't think Matt likes interrogating people as much as I do. By the way, you might have noticed that there's a wall behind Matt now. Yay! Well, I have to vlog all of that stuff still. And then we put up some curtains for privacy purposes, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I was thinking about, like, when did I actually get started in tiny living? And I think if you would ask my mom, she would tell you that she could see it coming from whenever I was a child, because she references this one time a lot when talking about my childhood to other people. And I guess once upon a time we tried building a playhouse for me in my backyard. We did not have a tree to make a tree house, so it was just like a wooden little built up tiny house, like for children, and I was so into it. I loved helping build it. And right around the time that it was done and I was actually able to play in it, we got some dogs. They didn't have anywhere to stay outside, so essentially it became their doghouse. And I think that my mom felt really bad about that because I didn't really get to utilize it. And so fast forward like 20 years later, I used to own my own business, and whenever my business was failing, I knew it was going to close soon. I knew that I was going to have to downsize because I had invested like everything into my business and didn't have a lot of like alternative options. So I had started looking into downsizing, and the more that I think about it, it's kind of depressing because it was like the reason I got into tiny living was actually because I was limiting myself, and probably more like using it as an escape rather than like a challenge to like save space and time and money and stuff like that, like in a good way. So yeah, maybe it wasn't like the healthiest start into tiny living, but when I closed my business, I had already moved into a tiny space. I actually converted my mom's shed in her backyard into a little tiny house. It didn't have running water or a kitchen per se, but I lived in it for like over a year and a half, and actually really liked it, and I really liked being part of the building process. That was really cool and like exciting for me, and I became obsessed with tiny house living. So that's when I went to my first tiny house festival, and I thought for sure I was going to build something as soon as I got back up on my feet again. And then so then instead I ended up on a boat, and you can't really build a lot on a boat. Matt and I were discussing, like, we both used to live on separate boats, and they're kind of prefabricated. So you can like renovate boats, but you can't really make them your own like you can a van. There's a crewmaster beside us.
Well, time for my auxiliary duty.
Every time there's a crewmaster near us, Matt has to caravan them.
It was in the owner's manual.
Alright, what other questions did I ask you? I already forgot.
You started on the...
I started tiny living. I guess what excites me is I really like being creative and like building stuff. I'm not very good at like art, like painting or drawing or stuff like that. Like that doesn't tend to make me feel great, but building stuff, I am able to visualize stuff in my mind and actually make it in reality. Like every time I would reorganize my bedroom growing up, I would always draw it out first, and everything would go precisely where that was. And that actually happened when I moved my like 1,300-foot apartment into a like, I think it was less than 100 square foot tiny house shed. I actually was able to keep almost all of my furniture because I Tetrised everything together and had a big giant plan before I even moved. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I enjoy about the lifestyle and what keeps me going. And doing this van build has really built upon that and really like reinvigorated it inside of me. And I think it's just like the start of something even bigger, because each time we build a section of the van, I get a little bit sad because we're actually done, but then I realize we're gonna like keep doing more and more and more stuff over time. Well, that's probably enough talking for now. We're almost there. We're getting